Today we're going to read Esperanza, written by Pam and Ryan. Sorry if I don't pronounce the Spanish words right. We're going to read the beginning and last Uvas. Our land is alive, Esperanza, said Papa, taking her small hand as they walked through the gentle slopes of the vineyard. Leafy green vines draped the arbors, and the grapes were ready to drop. Esperanza was 6 years old and loved to walk with her papa through the winding roads, gazing up at him and watching his eyes dance with love for the land. This whole valley breathes and lives, he said, sweeping his arms around the distant mountains that guarded him. It gives us the grapes and then they welcome us. He gently touched a wild tendril that reached into the row. As if it had been waiting to shake his hand, he picked up a handful of earth and studied it. Did you know that when you lie down on the land, you can feel it breathe? That you can feel its heart beating? Papi, I want to feel it, she said. Come. They walked to the end of the row, where the incline of the land formed a grassy swell. Papa lay down on his stomach and looked up at her, patting the ground next to him. Esperanza smoothed her dress and knelt down. Then, like a caterpillar, she slowly inched flat next to him, their faces looking at each other. The warm sun pressed on one of Esperanza's cheeks, then the warm earth on the other. She giggled. Shh, he said. You can only feel the earth's heartbeat when you're still and quiet. She swallowed her laughter and after a moment said, I can't hear it, Papi. He said, wait a little while and the fruit will fall into your hands. You must be patient, Esperanza. She waited and lay silent, watching her papa's eyes thumping then stronger and resounding thud, thud, thud against her body. She could hear it too, the beat rushing in her ears. Shump, shump, shump. Sorry that I don't know how to pronounce it. If you know what it means, please tell me in the comments. She stared at Papi, not wanting to say a word, not wanting to lose the sound, not wanting to forget the feel of the hurt of the valley. She pressed closer to the ground until her body was breathing with the earth, and with her Papi's and with Papa. Then 3 hearts beating together. She smiled at Papa, not needing to talk, her eyes saying everything, and his smile answered hers, telling her that he knew that she had felt it. Last Uvas, grapes. 6 years later, Papa handed Esperanza the knife. The short blade was curved like a stitch, its fat wooden handle fitting snugly into her palm. This job was usually reserved for the eldest son of a wealthy rancher, but since Esperanza was an only child and Papa's pride and glory, she was always given the honor. Last night she had watched Papa sharpen the knife back and forth across the stone, so she knew the tool was edged like a razor. Said Papa, watch your fingers. Then the August sun promised a dry afternoon in the Aguascaliente, Mexico. Everyone who lived and worked in El Rancho de la Rosa was gathered at the edge of the field. Esperanza's family, the house servants in long white aprons, the vaqueros already sitting on the horse, ready to ride out to the cattle, and 50 or 60 campesinos, straws hat in their hand, holding their own knives. Ready. They were covered top to bottom in long-sleeved shirts, baggy pants tied at the ankles, with string and bananas wrapped around their foreheads, and necks to protect them from the sun, dust, and spiders. Esperanza, on the other hand, wore a light silk dress that stopped above her summer boots, and no hat. On top of her head, a white satin ribbon was tied in a big bow. the tails trailing in her long black hair. The clusters were heavy on the vine and ready to deliver. Esperanza's parents, Ramona and Sicto Ortega, stood nearby. Mama, tall and elegant, her hair usually braided wreath that crowned her head. Papa, barely taller than Mama, his graying mustache twisted up at the sides. He swept his hand towards the grapevines, signaling Esperanza. When she walked toward the arbor and glanced back at her parents, they both smiled and nodded, encouraging her forward. When she reached the vines, she separated the leaves and carefully grasped a thick stem. She put the knife to it, and with a quick swipe, a heavy cluster of grapes dropped into her waiting hand. Esperanza walked to her papa and handed him the fruit. Papa kissed it and held it up for all to see. Las cosecha, said Papa. Harvest. Oil, oil. A cheer echoed around them. The campesinos, the field workers, spread out over the lands, beginning the task of reaping the fields. Esperanza stood between them. Mama and Papa, the farms, leaned to theirs and admired the activities of their workers. Poppy, this is my favorite time of the year, she said, watching the brightly colored shirts of the workers slowly moving among the arbors. Wagons reeled back and forth from the field to the big barns where the grapes would have been stored until they were ready to the winery. Is the reason because when the picking is done, it will be someone's birthday in time for a big fiesta? Papa asked. Esperanza smiled. When the grapes delivered their harvest, she always turned another year. This year it should be 13. The picking would take 3 weeks, and then, like every other year, Mama and Papa would host a fiesta for the harvest and for her birthday. Marcel Rodrigo, her best friend, would come with her family to celebrate. Her father was a fruit rancher, and he lived on the neighboring property. Even though their houses were acres apart, they met every Saturday beneath the hummock on a rise between the two ranches. Her other friends, Chicha and Brunetta, would be at the party too. They lived farther away, and Esperanza didn't see them as often. Third classes at St. Francis didn't start until after the harvest, and she couldn't wait to see them. When they were all together, they talked about one thing: their quinceañeras, the presentation parties they would have when they turned 15. They had 2 more years to wait, but so much to discuss. The beautiful white gowns they would wear, the big celebrations where they would be presented, and their sons of the richest families who would dance with them. After they would become old enough to court, marry, and become las patronas, the heads of their households, rising to the positions of their mothers before them. Esperanza preferred to think, though, that she and her someday husband would live with Mama and Papa forever, because she couldn't imagine living anywhere but the El Rancho de las Rosas, or with any fewer servants, or without being surrounded by people who adored her. It had taken every day of 3 weeks to put the harvest to bed, and now everyone anticipated the celebration. Esperanza remembered Mama's instructions as she gathered roses from Papa's garden. Tomorrow, bouquets of rose, and basket of grapes on every table. Papa has promised to meet her in the garden, and he never disappoints her. She bent over to pick a red bloom, fully open, and it prickled her finger on a vicious thorn. Big pearls of blood pulsed from her tip of her thumb, and she automatically thought bad luck. She quickly wrapped her hand in the corner of her apron dismissed the premonition. Then she cautiously clipped the blown rose that had wounded her. Looking towards the horizon, she saw the last sun disappear behind the Srry Madra. Darkness would settle quickly, and a feeling of uneasiness and worry nagged her. Where's Papa? He left early that morning with the vaquas to work the cattle, and he was always home for sundown, dusty from the mesquite grasslands and stamping his feet on the patio to get rid of the crusty dirt on his boots. Sometimes he even bought beef jerky the cattleman had made, but Esperanza always had to find it first, searching his shirt pockets and while he hugged her. Tomorrow was her birthday, and she knew that she would be surrounded at sunrise. Papa and the men who lived on the ranch would congregate below her window, the rich, sweet voices singing Las Manatas, the birthday song. She would run to her window, wave kisses to Papa and the others, and downstairs she would open her gifts. She knew there would be a porcelain doll from Papa. He'd given her one every year since she was born. And Mama would give her something she made. Lena's cosmos or blouses embroidered with her beautiful needlework. The linens always went into the trunk at the end of her bed for the algandías for someday. Esperanza's thumb would not stop bleeding. She picked up the basket of rose, hurried from the garden, stopping on the patio to rinse her hands in the stone fountain. As the water soothed her, she looked through the massive wind gardens open onto the acres of Papa's land. Esperanza strained her eyes to see a dust cloud that meant riders were near, and Papa was finally home. But she saw nothing in the dusky light. She walked around the courtyard to the back of the large adobe and wood house. She found Mama searching the horizon too. "Mama, I think an angry thorn stabbed me," said Esperanza. "Bad luck," said Mama, confirming the superstition, but she half smiled. They both knew that bad luck could mean nothing more than dropping a pan of water or breaking a neck. Mama put her arm around Esperanza's waist, and both sets of eyes swept through the corrals, stables, and servants' quarter. They sprawled in the distance. Esperanza was almost as tall as Mama, and everyone said she would look like her beautiful mother. Sometimes when Esperanza twisted her hair on top of her head and looked in the mirror, she could see it was almost true. There was already the same black wavy hair, wavy and thick, same dark lashes and fair creamy skin. But it wasn't precisely Mama's face, because Papa's eyes were there too, sharp like fat brown almonds. "He's just a little weight," said Mama, and part of Esperanza's mind believed her, but the other part scolded him. "Mama, the neighbors warned him just last night about the bandits." Mama nodded and bit the corner of her lip in worry. They both knew that even though it was 1930 and the revolution in Mexico has been over for 10 years, there is still some resentment against the large landowners. Change has not come fast enough, Esperanza. The wealthy still owns most of the land, while some of the poor has not even gotten a garden plot. There are cattle grazing on the big ranches, yet some peasants are forced to eat cats. Papa is sympathetic and has given in to many of his workers. The people know that. But Mama, do the bandits know that? "I hope so," said Mama quietly. "I have already sent Alfonso Miguel to look for him. Let's wait inside." Tea was ready in Papa's study, and so was Abuelita. Come, Niñata, my granddaughter, said Abuelita, holding up yarn and crochet hooks. I am starting a new blanket and will teach you the zigzag. Esperanza's grandmother, whom everyone called Abuelita, lived with them and was a smaller, older, more wrinkled version of Mama. She looked very distinguished, wearing a respectable black dress, the same gold loops she wore in her ears every day, and her white hair pulled back into a bun at the nape of her neck. But Esperanza loved her more for her capricious way than her propriety. Abuela might be host a group of ladies for a formal tea in the afternoon, then after they had gone, be found wandering barefoot in the grapes, with a book in her hand, quoting poetry to the birds, although some things were always the same with Abuelita, a lace-edged handkerchief peeking out beneath the sleeve of her dress. Others were surprising a flower in her hair, a beautiful stone in her pocket, or a philosophical saying salted in her conversation. When Abuelita walked into a room, everyone scrambled to make her comfortable. Even Papa would give up his chair for her. Esperanza complained, "Must we always crochet to get our minds off worry?" She sat next to grandmother anyway, swallowing her ever-present aroma of garlic, face powder, and peppermint. "What happened to your finger?" asked Abuelita. "A big thorn." Abuelita nodded and said thoughtfully, "No hay rosas en espinas." There were no roses without thorns. Esperanza smiled, knowing that Abuelita wasn't talking about flowers at all, but that there was no life without difficulties. She watched the silver crochet needle dance back and forth in her grandmother's hand. When a strand of hair fell into her lap, Abuelita picked it up and held it against the yarn and stitched it into the blanket. "Esperanza, in this way my love and good wishes will be in the blanket forever. Now watch. 10 stitches up to the top of the mountain. Add 1 stitch. 9 stitches down to the bottom of the valley. Skip 1. Esperanza picked up her own crochet needle and copied Abuelita's movements, and then looked at her own crocheting. The tops of her mountain were lopsided, and the bottoms of her valley were all bunched up. Abuelita smiled, reached over, and pulled the yarn, unraveling all of Esperanza's rows. "Do not be afraid to start over," she said. Esperanza sighed and began again with 10 stitches. Softly humming, Hornesta, the housekeeper, came in with a plate of small sandwiches. She offered one to Mama. "No, thank you," said Mama. Hornesta set the tray down and brought a shawl and wrapped it protectively around Mama's shoulder. Esperanza could remember a time when Hornesta had not taken care of them. She was a Zapotec Indian from Oaxaca, with a short, solid figure, her blue-black hair and braid down her back. Esperanza watched the two women look out into the dark and couldn't help but think that Hornesta was almost the opposite of Mama. Don't worry so much," she said Hornesta. "Alfonso and Miguel will find them." Alfonso, Hornesta's husband, was Il Jefe, the boss of all the field workers in Papa's Comango, his close friend and companion. He had the same dark skin and a small stature as Hornesta, and Esperanza thought his round eyes, long eyelids, and drooping mustache made him look like a forlorn puppy. He was anything but sad, though he loved the land as Papa did, and had been the two of them working side by side who had rejected the neglected rose garden, and that had been in the family for generations. Alfonso's brothers worked in the United States, so Alfonso always talked about going there someday. He stayed in Mexico because his attachment to Papa and El Ranch de la Rosas. Miguel was Alfonso's and Ernesto's son, and he and Esperanza has played together since they were babies. At 16, he was already taller than both of his parents. He had their dark skin and Alfonso's big sleepy eyes, and thick eyebrows that Esperanza always had grown to one. It was true that he knew the farthest reaches of the ranch better than anyone. Since Miguel was a young boy, Papa has taken him to parts of the property that even Esperanza and Mama had never seen. When she was younger, Esperanza used to complain, "Why does he always get to go and not me?" Papa would say because he knows how to fix things and he's learning his job. Miguel would look at her for right and half of Papa, and he would give her a taunting smile. But Papa said was true too. Miguel had patience and quiet strength and could figure out how to fix anything, plows and tractors, especially anything with a motor. Several years ago, when Esperanza was younger, Mama and Papa has been discussing boys from good family whom Esperanza should meet someday. She couldn't imagine being packed with someone she never met, so she announced, "I'm going to marry Miguel." Mama had laughed and said, "You will feel differently as you grow older." "No, I won't," said Esperanza had said stubbornly. But now that she's a young woman, and she understood that Miguel was the housekeeper's son, and she was the ranch owner's daughter, and between them ran a deep river. Esperanza stood on one side, and Miguel stood on the other, and the river could never be crossed in a moment of self-importance. Esperanza has told all of this to Miguel. Since then, he has only spoken a few words to her. When their paths crossed, he nodded and politely said, "Mi reina, my queen," but nothing more. There was no teasing or laughing or talking about every little thing. Esperanza pretended not to care, but she secretly wished she had never told Miguel about the river. Distracted, Mama paced at the river. Each step was making a hollow tapping sound on the tile floor. Esperanza lit lamps. The minutes passed into hours. "I hear riders," said Mama, and she ran for the door. It was only Tio Luis, Tio Martha, Papa's older stepbrothers. Tio Luis was the bank president, and Tio Marco was the mayor of the town. Esperanza didn't care about how important they were, because she did not like them. They were serious and gloomy, and always held their chins too high. Tio Luis was the oldest, and Tio Marco, who was a few years younger and not as smart, he always followed his older brother's lead, like a donkey. Even though Tio Marco was a mayor, he did everything Tio Luis told him to. They were both tall, skinny, with tiny mustaches and white beards on the tips of their chin. Esperanza could tell that Mama didn't like them either, but she was always polite because they were Papa's family. Mama had even hosted parties for Tio Marco when he ran the mirror. Neither had ever married in Papa says because they loved money and power more than people. Esperanza thought it was because they looked like two undifferently Belios. "Ramon," said Tio Luis, "we had bad news. One of the Vacos brought this to us." He handed Mama and Papa silver belt buckle, the only one of its kind, engraved with the brand of the ranch. Mama's face brightened. She examined it and turned it over and over in her hand. It may mean nothing," she said, then ignoring them. She turned toward the window and began pacing again, still clutching the belt buckle. "We will wait with you in your time of need," said Tio Luis, as they passed Esperanza. He patted her on the shoulder and gave it a gentle squeeze. Esperanza stared after him. In her entire life, She couldn't remember him ever touching her. Her uncles were not like those of her friends. They never spoke to her, played, or even teased her. In fact, they acted as if she didn't exist at all. And for that reason, Tia Lou's sudden kindness made her shiver with fear for Papa. Abuelita and Honesta began lighting candles and saying prayers for them in safe return. Mama, with her arms hugging her chest, swayed back and forth at the window, never taking her eyes off the darkness. She tried to pass the time with small talk, but their words were dwindled in the silence. Every sound of the house seemed magnified. The clock ticking, someone coughing, the clink of a teacup. Esperanza struggled with her stitches. She tried to think about the fiesta and all the presents she would receive tomorrow. She tried to think of bouquets of roses and baskets of grape on every table. She tried to think of Marisol and the other girls giggling, telling stories, but those thoughts would only stay in her mind for a few moments before transferring to worry, because she couldn't ignore the throbbing soreness in her thumb where the thorn had left its unlucky mark. It wasn't until the candle held nothing but short stubs of tallow that Mama finally said, "I see a lantern. Someone is coming." They hurried to the courtyard and watched distantly, a small beacon of hope swaying darkness. The wagon came into view. Alfonso held the rein and Miguel the lantern. When the wagon stopped, Esperanza could see a body in the back completely covered with a blanket. "Where's Papa?" she cried. Miguel hung his head. Alfonso didn't say a word, but the tears running his round cheeks confirmed the worst. Mama fainted. Abuelita and Hornesta ran to her side. Esperanza felt her heart drop. A noise came from her mouth, and slowly her breath and her first breath of grief grew into a tormented cry. She fell to her knees and sank into a dark hole of despair and disbelief. I hope you enjoyed that chapter. Sorry for making a lot of mistakes. Sorry for making a lot of mistakes. Sorry if I did not pronounce any of the Spanish words right. That's me. Stay tuned for the next chapter. Las Papayas. Okay, see you soon. Bye.